Is the New York Giants roster one of the worst in the NFL? Perhaps even the worst. NFL analysts across the internet seem to think that might be the case. So let's discuss that on this edition of Valentine's Views here on the Big Blue View YouTube channel. Please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. All right. I hope you guys missed me last week while I took some time away, took the wife and one of the grandkids and spent a few days in Cape Cod. That's why there weren't shows most of last week, just in case you guys were wondering. But we're back and rested and relaxed and ready for the 4th of July holiday coming up and for the stretch run getting ready for Giants training camp, which begins July 24th, which is amazingly 3.5 weeks away at this point. Crazy how the summer goes by and how quickly we'll be getting back to daily New York Giants football. All right. I've been wanting to talk about this topic for a while. Seems like every time you turn around, a different national analyst is putting together a list that indicates that the Giants have one of the worst rosters in football. Even saw one list that said they do have the absolute worst roster in football. And listen, I don't claim to be an expert on every roster in the NFL, but I really have a hard time believing that the Giants roster is is the worst or second worst or third worst in the NFL. I get it. Daniel Jones is still the Giants quarterback, and a lot of people, you just look at that and in disbelief and give the Giants demerits for that right away. Giants lost Saquon Barkley in the offseason. On the defensive side of the ball, they haven't replaced either cornerback Adoree Jackson or defensive tackle Leonard Williams, who was traded at the deadline last year. They haven't replaced either of those guys with a brand name player. They also lost Darren Waller to retirement in the during the off season. I don't know how big of a loss you guys consider Waller, but still, that's a brand name who's been productive throughout his career and a spot that the Giants have to replace. I get it. People look at those things and they think, on its face, this might be a roster that's gone backwards from a year ago when the Giants won only 6 games and looked completely awful. They had the 3-game run with Tommy DeVito at quarterback, but didn't at times even look like a 6-win football team. So I get it. But what I think is really the case here is that a lot of these national analysts haven't done the deep study, the deep dive into the Giants position by position. And, when you take a cursory look at the roster, I understand how people think what they think. But what I believe, and something that we'll be delving into throughout the month of July, getting ready for training camp at Big Blue View, we'll be doing position by position previews. We'll be looking at the major question marks, the sort of make or break players at each position, maybe the best case scenario, the worst case scenario at each position. What I believe, as to sort of summarize some of what we'll be writing about throughout the month, what I believe is that what the Giants have right now is a very young roster, a very unproven roster. There are a lot of positions where people aren't sure what they're going to get, but I think there is the upside, there is the possibility that in the end, by the end of the 2024 season, this Giants roster could be looked at much differently than a lot of national analysts look at it right now. Let's look at the offense quickly. Obviously, the biggest question mark is Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones plays like 2022 Daniel Jones, when the Giants made the playoffs, when Jones led the league in interception percentage with the lowest interception percentage, I think it was 1.1%, lowest interception percentage of any quarterback in the league. If Jones plays the way that he played in 2022, there will be a different narrative about Daniel Jones, and there might be a different feeling about the Giants entirely. If then you look at other question marks. Obviously, we talked about replacing Saquon Barkley. Devin Singletary is not Saquon Barkley, but there are metrics you can look at that show that in a lot of ways, Singletary over the last 3 to 4 years has been in some ways just as productive as Saquon Barkley on a per carry basis. Obviously, Singletary doesn't carry the ball as often as Barkley did, doesn't get that volume of touches, never has. So the Giants are going to need more of a committee approach in the backfield. And the great unknown is really whether one of the two youngsters, Eric Gray, drafted in the 5th round a year ago, or Tyrone Tracy, drafted in the 5th round this spring, can really step up and be a quality NFL back. There's a lot of excitement about Tracy, converted wide receiver. And if Tracy is the kind of player that a lot of analysts think he's going to be, along with Singletary, then running back is not a question mark, and the roster at running back looks a lot different. In terms of replacing Darren Waller, Daniel Bellinger's a good player. If the Giants get some production from rookie 4th round pick Theo Johnson, if one of the blocking tight ends, one of the veteran blocking tight ends they have competing for a job works out, either Chris Manhertz or Jack Stoll, then the tight end position is fine. Wide receiver with Malik Neighbors, 1st round pick, 6th overall, number 1 receiver, first one the Giants have really had since Odell Beckham. Provided that Neighbors is the player that the Giants think he is, and that a lot of analysts think he is, along with Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt. This is a good wide receiver group. That's a good top 4. If Neighbors is the player that the Giants think he's going to be, then wide receiver looks better for the Giants than it has in quite some time. And again, unproven, nothing to, no real evidence other than what we think might happen. But again, if this wide receiver group is as good as we think it is, if Daniel Jones plays to his 2022 standard, if the Giants get production out of Tyrone Tracy, this roster looks a lot different. And obviously, it looks a lot different if the offensive line plays functionally. And listen, the Giants made some additions in free agency in the offseason. John Runyon Jr., Jermaine Illuminor as starters. They added depth pieces in Austin Schlottman, Aaron Stinney, and Matt Nelson, all veteran players. But, they didn't sign any superstars. The superstar they're getting back is Andrew Thomas, who is one of the best left tackles in the league. Missed a lot of time last year with an ankle injury, ended up having ankle surgery, played through half the season when he wasn't anywhere near 100%. Whatever Andrew Thomas did last season was not representative of the kind of player Andrew Thomas actually is. Honestly, with Andrew Thomas back, second year for John Michael Schmitz, with veterans like Illuminor and Runyon, with the possibility, we don't know what's going to happen with Evan Neal, but I don't think the Giants are going to run him out there week after week if he's just not getting the job done. I think that's part of the reason the Giants signed so many veteran players in free agency, was to have an option. But with new offensive line coach Carmen Brasillo, with Thomas healthy, with some of the additions they've made, I'm not going to sit here and predict that this offensive line is going to be top 5 in the league or top 10 in the league. but this offensive line should be functional. It should be at least league average. And let's be honest, Giants fans, that's a huge, huge improvement over what we saw last year and even over what we've seen in the last few years for the Giants. So again, on the offensive side of the ball, there's a lot of ifs, there's a lot of possibilities, but I think that there's upside that makes it possible that all of these doom and gloom predictions about how bad the Giants roster could be um, end up looking silly at the end of the year. And that's my look at the offensive side. On the defensive side, obviously the Giants have Dexter Lawrence in the middle. They're looking for help along the defensive line. A couple veteran players, Raheem Nunez Roches, Jordan Phillips, possibilities there. Ryder Anderson, couple of young undrafted free agents, Casey Rogers and Elijah Chapman. It would be nice if the Giants had one more established quality lineman who had a better resume at this point in his career than either Phillips or Nunez Roches does. But we'll have to see how that plays out. Maybe there's an addition to be made there with some of the cap space that the Giants have. But look, on the defensive side of the ball, adding Brian Burns as a second edge opposite Kayvon Thibodeau is a huge, huge factor. And the fact that Thibodeau coming into his third year should continue to get better. Bobby Okereke in the middle with, Micah McFadden coming off a good second year. Tay Banks should be better in his second year than he was as a rookie. Lots of question marks about the slot corner and second corner positions. Giants have options there. Third round pick Andrew Phillips in the slot. 2022 third round pick Cordale Flott looks like a possibility at the outside corner spot. Nick McLeod, veteran special teamer who's played both spots, could fit in there somewhere. So could Trey Hawkins. Again, I understand the fact that these guys don't have a resume that make people look at it and say that's a proven secondary. They look at it and they say that secondary is a problem. I'm not sure it's going to be a problem. What I say is that at this point in time, it's unproven. We haven't seen Tay Banks, match up full time against number one wide receivers. We haven't seen Andrew Phillips as an NFL player. We haven't seen Cordale Flott as a full-time starter on the outside. So we don't have evidence to point to that says this is a good secondary. And really the same at the safety position. Jason Pinnock had a good year last year, but the Giants are looking at second-round pick Tyler Nubin, Dane Belton, veteran Jalen Mills. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but if Tyler Nubin is the leader and the player that the Giants think he's going to be, again, you'll have a different impression of the secondary and of the defense overall. If some of these things that the Giants are counting on or hoping for come to fruition. Again, I just think I certainly understand why people look at it and say, we're just not sure. But I look at it and maybe I'm looking at it as a glass half full guy. And you can say if you want that I'm looking at it through blue colored glasses. I don't think I am, because I certainly understand that there's also possibility for failure at all of these spots. But I do think there is potential throughout the roster for this to end up being a roster that winds up being looked at as much better than one of the bottom 2, 3, 4 rosters in the NFL once all is said and done at the end of the 2024 NFL season. All right, before I wrap it up, just wanted to remind you guys that the Giants' appearance on Hard Knocks starts Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on HBO and Max. And I know that I am looking forward to this, and I'll make an admission here. I have never watched Hard Knocks. I mean, I've watched a clip here and there. I may have watched 2 minutes of a show by accident somewhere along the way, but I am not a big Hard Knocks fan. This, however, this inside look at the Giants, this look at how some of their offseason decisions came about, this is something I will be glued to. We'll be covering intensely at Big Blue View. I hope you guys are looking forward to this as much as I am. It's really unprecedented access to the Giants front office. This is different than the in-season training camp Hard Knocks that you guys who are Hard Knocks fans might really be used to. This will be front office and coaching staff oriented. This will be roster build oriented. This will have a lot about Saquon Barkley, a lot about some of the draft decisions that the Giants made. Uh, Really interesting. Some reporting from Dan Duggan on why the Giants went for this, and it's all tied into their 100th anniversary, the 100th season of competition in the NFL. Duggan's reporting and my chat recently with David Dominic of the Giants indicate, the Giants were looking for a way to promote their 100th season, to bring attention to their 100th season, to bring attention to the history of one of the NFL's original franchises. I don't think Hard Knocks was originally part of the plan, but according to Dan Duggan's reporting, the Giants worked with NFL Films. They ended up working with HBO. They came up with this off-season concept. John Mara seemed to be all for it, which is interesting because Mara has never wanted to see the Giants on Hard Knocks. But again, this is a different kind of access. This isn't player intrusive. This isn't training camp intrusive. So it's really a way for the Giants to promote their 100th anniversary, to give fans a glimpse at the franchise, at the history of the franchise, and I'm looking forward to it. We'll see what sort of nuggets come out of it each and every week on Tuesday nights through the month of July, and we'll be giving you guys our reactions and covering the news nuggets as much as we can at Big Blue View throughout the coming weeks. All right, Giants fans, that's it for today. Thank you very, very much for listening. Please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.